catchy mathematic rhyme like, go students, go student, go student. Wait, go students, go students.
Hello and welcome to the Kearney Math Show. Thank you all for tuning in today. On today's episode of the Kearney Math Show, we are going to be featuring both angles and triangles. So before we get started, go ahead and write at the top of your mini lesson. This is entry number 2. And go ahead and read our learning goal. So entry number 2 and our learning goal. So our learning goal is that by the end of today, I want you to be able to do a couple of different things. I want you to be able to define and classify triangles by what type of triangles they are. And I also want you to be able to find the missing angle measures in a triangle. And I want you to be able to determine if certain sides would create a triangle. So before we ever get to any of the math, we need to look at some vocabulary, some important vocabulary words. So I'm just going to go through the vocabulary very quickly because I'm sure that most of you have heard of these triangles before. So the very first one is a right triangle. A right triangle is a triangle. Give me just a second. I have a little bit of technical difficulty here. Okay. We're going to pause just for a second and try to figure out what in the world is going on. So sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so Miss Kearney has created it so that you don't have to read my terrible handwriting, and I have tried to type in a few of these definitions. So a right triangle is a triangle with one right angle. So it has just one right angle in it. Okay, so if we were to draw a picture of that, it would look something similar to that. One right angle, okay? An obtuse angle is, an obtuse triangle is exactly what it sounds like. It's a triangle with one obtuse angle, okay? It only can have one obtuse angle. And why do you think it can only have one obtuse angle? Have you ever tried to draw a triangle with more than one obtuse angle? Try it, see if it's possible. So, one obtuse angle. And let's say that one's obtuse. Okay? An acute triangle. It's a triangle just like it sounds like. It's a little teeny baby cute triangle. That means all the angles are acute. Okay? So I want to ask you a question. Here we said a right triangle only has one right angle. Here we said an obtuse triangle only has one obtuse angle. So why does an acute triangle have to have, Miss Kearney made a mistake here. An acute triangle has all acute angles. So why do you think that a right triangle and an obtuse triangle can only have one right angle or one obtuse angle, but an acute triangle has all acute angles? So that's something for you to think about. Okay? So that is about the angles. So we can classify a triangle just based off of its angles. Other ways to classify triangles are by their sides. So one type of triangle is known as an equilateral triangle. And when you hear the word equilateral, what do you hear? Equal. An equilateral triangle is exactly what it sounds like. It's a triangle that has all equal sides. And if all the sides are equal, then that means all the angles are congruent. So if we were to draw that, we would try to draw a triangle with all three sides equal and all three angles equal. Ms. Kearney may not have done a very good job of that, but there's the best I can do. Okay? Next is an isosceles triangle. And when I hear the word isosceles, I hear eyes. And how many eyes do you have? Well, most people have 2. So an isosceles triangle has 2 equal sides and 2 congruent angles. And then a scaling triangle is, so an equilateral, all sides are the same. Isosceles, 2. And so scalene, a triangle that has no equal sides or equal angles. Okay, so we've got isosceles, we know 2 of the sides have to be the same. And then maybe this one's different. And scalene, they're all different. So we might have this one, we might have a really long side and an even longer third side. So 1, this one's 2, let's let this one be 3 to show they're all different. Okay? So those are just, on some of the problems today, they're going to specify an isosceles or scalene. So look for those keywords to help you solve these problems. So now that we're done with the vocabulary, let's actually get to some math, okay? And I'm going to give you 2 rules here. And I'm just going to tell you the 2 rules. And when you come to my station today later, we're going to be using some straws and we're going to be designing some triangles to figure out why these 2 rules work. Right now, I'm just going to tell you the rules. When you come to my station, I'll explain why they work. So the first rule about all triangles is that the sum of all the interior is just a fancy word for inside. So the sum of all the interior angles of any triangle is 180. That means no matter how big, how small, every triangle, if you were to measure all 3 angles and add them up, every triangle, all angles add up to 180. Okay? And I'll explain it, like I said, when you come to mind, why that works. Okay? The second rule about triangles that many people find very interesting, many people don't know this, is many people think that you can take any 3 sides and make a triangle. And yes, it does take 3 sides, but it can't just be any 3 sides. They have to meet a certain criteria. So in order to make a triangle, when you're looking at 3 sides of a triangle, the 2 smaller sides of the triangle actually must be greater than the largest side. Okay, so if I were to take a triangle that has 3 sides, I would need to, or if I had 3 different lengths and I wanted to make sure it formed a triangle, I would take the 2 smaller sides and make sure that those are greater than, not equal to, but greater than the larger side. Okay, so let's use these 2 rules to help us solve a few problems. So let's go down to, say, this number 1 here. Okay, we've got a triangle. And we've got to find the missing angle. So for these problems today, you're going to need to figure out first, is this an angle problem or is it a side problem? And clearly this is talking about the inside. So we're talking about the angles. And so what do we say that all the angles in a triangle add up to? That's right, 180. So what I can do is I can add 50 and 55, and that gives me 105. So we got to say 105 plus what would give me 180? So I can work backwards and say 180 minus 105, and I get that this angle must measure 75 degrees. Now, if I wanted to check to make sure this was correct, how could I do that? That's right, I could add all 3 up, and they should give me 180. Okay? Now let's look at, if you will, look at the next one beside it. We'll do one more. Okay, so in a triangle, we have measurements 35 and 65. Find the measure of the third angle. So we've got 35 plus 65. So right now, if I add those up, I get 100. What do I need all 3 angles to add up to? 180. Very good. So what does that mean my third angle needs to be? So 180 minus 100. My third angle needs to be 80 degrees. Okay? So all angles in a triangle add up to 180. Now, be careful. In some of the problems, it might say a right triangle has an angle that measures something. Look for those keywords. If you know it's a right triangle, what do you know that one of the angles has to be? 90. Good. Okay, so now let's look at how the sides work. So if you will look on the right-hand side of your paper at number 2. Okay, it says which group of line segments could form a triangle. So now we're moving from the angles that measure 180 to now we're talking about the outside of a triangle. So if we look back at our second rule that we talked about, we know that the two smaller sides of a triangle have to be greater than the longer side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all of these and see which one works, meets that criteria. So A, the two smaller sides are 3 and 4. So 3 plus 4 is 7. Is 7 greater than 7? No. So that one doesn't work. Next one, if I did the two smaller sides, 4 plus 4, that's 8. Is 8 greater than 8? No. Next one, 5 plus 7. If I add 5 plus 7, I get 12. Is 12 greater than 9? Yeah. And then let's just check the last one. 7 plus 9 is 16, which is not greater than 17. So my answer has got to be C. Okay? So the two smaller sides must be greater than the longer side. All right, guys, so that kind of wraps up for today. So our two big things that we walk away from knowing: you should know your vocabulary, and you should also know the two rules are all angles in a triangle add up to 180, and that the outside of a triangle, that the two smaller sides must be greater than the larger side in order for 3 lengths to form a triangle. Okay, so go back if you have any questions, rewatch the video, or just jot them down and you can bring them to me in my station and I will show you why these rules make sense. All right, guys, good luck. Make me proud. Peace out, Rainbow Trout. Love you, mean it.